everybody, this is D. Joseph Allen. Thanks for tuning in. Real quick before I get into the meat of the video, I want to say thanks to ProfMTH. Prof, you know why, you rule. Thanks to Shwanerd for featuring one of my, well, not featuring, but linking to one of my videos on the sidebar to one of his latest videos. And thanks to all my new subscribers, and as always to my older ones. Also a quick shout out to a user by the name of Cuythulu. He's a fellow Mexican YouTuber. If you speak Spanish and you want to see tons of annotated and translated Spanish videos, go over to his channel. One last quick thing, on my last video I just passed 200 subscribers and I asked you to post questions if you had any. I had a few questions, but instead of answering them on this video, I'm gonna put that out again since I just passed 300 subscribers. So if you have any questions, email me or put them down here on the comment box, and I will do a answering questions video after this, but I don't want to clog this video. Also real quick, I'm sorry it took me so long to post this video, but it was pretty complicated. I had to do a bunch of reading off of the internet and off of books that I had, and it just started getting bigger and bigger and longer, so I had to start editing it down. So there might be a lot of points that I'm not covering on here. If you want to, give me a little bit of a heads up on that, if you find something that you think would be important for this video, I might do a follow-up video. Chances are that I had it in the original script and I took it out because, as I said, it was getting really long and really complicated. I hope that I can do this in one video, but I have a strong suspicion that this is going to be a two-parter. So here we go. This video is going to be on the doctrine of divine simplicity. Now I'm going to give you a little background. Before I start, this video was spurred on by two previous videos of mine, one of which is in the beginning there was complexity right here, and the other one is a response to migkiller on the multiverse hypothesis, which I'll link right here. They both catalyzed the making of this video, so if you haven't seen them, go now. Now the main idea of in the beginning there was complexity is that if we take a look at what the idea of a theistic God would entail, we find ourselves with an unimaginably complex and complicated being that has always existed for no reason with no cause. Now the argument goes that God doesn't need reason since he is not contingent, and the doctrine of divine simplicity is related to this claim. In any case, the main focus here is not on a contingence argument, but the coherency of the doctrine of divine simplicity. So we will in some sense here grant that God is somehow necessary. My contention is that this still does not answer how God is supposedly simple. Now, for a quick reading of what the doctrine of divine simplicity is, from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which I will link to the side, as well as all my other sources for this video. Quote, according to the classical theism of Augustine, Anselm, Aquinas, and their adherents, God is radically unlike creatures in that he is devoid of any complexity or composition, whether physical or metaphysical. God is free from matter-form composition, potency-act composition, and existence-essence composition. There is no real distinction between God as subject of his attributes and his attributes. God is thus identical to each of his attributes, which implies that each attribute is identical to every other one. God is omniscient, then, not in virtue of instantiating or exemplifying omniscience, which would imply a real distinction between God and the property of omniscience, but by being omniscience. The same holds for each of the divine omni-attributes. God is what he has. As identical to each of his attributes, God is identical to his nature, and since his nature or essence is identical to his existence, God is identical to his existence. This is the doctrine of divine simplicity. It is to be understood as an affirmation of God's absolute transcendence of creatures. God is not only radically non-anthropomorphic, but radically non-creaturomorphic, not only in respect of the properties he possesses, but in his manner of possessing them. God, we could say, differs in his very ontology from any and all created beings, end unquote. First, I have to point out a well-known criticism which plagues basically all attempted descriptions of God. You will notice that no positive attributes are given here. God is non-anthropomorphic. God is non-creaturomorphic. We could add the well-known God is immaterial, he is incorporeal, etc., etc. All these only tell us what God is not. They do not tell us what God is. I will also note that the doctrine of divine simplicity entails that God lacks the obvious forms of complexity associated with the possession of material or temporal parts, but also that he lacks even the minimal form of complexity associated with the possession of distinct properties or attributes. So from the statement that God is divine, it is inferred that God's nature is identical with his divinity. From the fact that he is good, they infer that he is identical with his goodness, and so on in every other such case. And of course, from the fact that God is identical with each of these things, they infer that each of them is identical with each of the others. I repeat this because I want you to keep this in mind for a little bit later. I will only discuss two problems which I think are the most important to get out there with divine simplicity. There are more, but I'm only going to touch on two, and then I'm going to expound on them more and give other examples, etc., etc. Problem number one. The doctrine claims that there is no ontological composition in God of any sort, whether of matter and form or of essence and accident, or of this attribute and that attribute considered as ontologically distinct. Divine simplicity, like the complementary doctrine of the Trinity, leads to intellectual difficulties. It appears incomprehensible how we can meaningfully predicate different attributes of God, such as perfect mercy and perfect justice. For according to the doctrine of divine simplicity, when God has attributes A and B, then God's being A is ontologically identical with God's being B. The difficulty is that under such circumstances, mercy and justice seem to lose their ordinary language meaning, and since our linguistic usage is based on ordinary language, it becomes meaningless to use the terms about God. This is the multiple attributes problem. I will continue this on part 2.